Preston Langford had it all: wealth, power, and the perfect life laid out for him. But when Sana Reid walked into the room, she stole more than just his attention. She stole his heart. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Preston Langford's Manhattan penthouse. At 29, Preston had everything most men could only dream of: good looks, family wealth that stretched back generations, and a corner office at Langford Ventures, the family business that turned millions into billions. Preston adjusted his silk tie and checked his appearance one last time in the mirror. His sandy brown hair was perfectly trimmed, his blue eyes clear and focused. Tonight was the annual charity auction for the Children's Hospital Foundation, and as a Langford, he was expected to make an appearance and a sizable donation. Another night, another event, he muttered to himself, grabbing his wallet and keys. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother, Catherine Langford. "Don't forget the Henderson girl will be there tonight. Her father just joined the hospital board. Make sure to say hello." Preston sighed. This was typical. His mother's not-so-subtle attempts to push him towards suitable women. Women from the right families, with the right backgrounds, who would make the right additions to the Langford dynasty. "Got it, mother," he texted back, even though he had no intention of pursuing yet another woman his family had pre-selected for him. The charity auction was held at the Plaza Hotel, where New York's elite gathered in their finest attire. Preston moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and making small talk. He'd been trained for this his entire life, to be the perfect Langford heir. "Preston, darling," his mother's voice called out. Catherine Langford was a striking woman in her 60s, her blonde hair in an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. "Come meet Melissa Henderson." Preston plastered on his society smile and turned to greet the young woman standing beside his mother. Melissa was pretty in a predictable way. Blonde, thin, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Pleasure to meet you," he said automatically. "The pleasure's all mine," Melissa replied with a practiced smile. "Your mother tells me you've just closed an impressive deal with that tech startup in Seattle." And so it went, the same conversation he'd had 100 times before. Preston nodded and smiled at all the right moments, but inside he felt nothing. Empty, like he was playing a role in someone else's life. That's when the room suddenly seemed to shift. A woman had entered through the main doors. She wasn't making a grand entrance or calling attention to herself, but somehow everyone noticed. Preston certainly did. She was black, with rich brown skin that glowed under the chandelier lights. Her natural curls were styled in an elegant updo that framed her face perfectly. She wore a simple yet stunning red dress that hugged her curves and fell just below her knees. But it wasn't just her beauty that captured Preston's attention. It was the way she carried herself, like she owned the room without needing to announce it. "Excuse me," Preston said to Melissa, not even waiting for a response before he walked away. He made his way across the room, drawn to this woman like a magnet. As he got closer, he could see the intelligence in her eyes, the slight curl of amusement on her lips as she surveyed the room. "I don't believe we've met," Preston said, extending his hand. "Preston Langford." The woman turned to him, her eyes assessing him briefly before she took his hand. "Sana Reid." Her voice was smooth and confident, with no trace of being impressed by his name. "Are you enjoying the event, Ms. Reid?" he asked. "It's fine," she said with a small shrug. "Though I find it interesting how much money gets spent on an event to raise money." Preston wasn't used to such directness. Most people at these functions spoke in carefully coded language, never saying what they really thought. "You make a fair point," he admitted. "Though I suppose the theory is that the spectacle encourages bigger donations." "And does it?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Preston found himself smiling, a real smile, not his society mask. "I just added another 0 to my donation after meeting you, so perhaps it works." For the first time Sana smiled. It transformed her face, lighting up her eyes. "Smooth talker. Do they teach that in billionaire school?" Preston laughed, genuinely amused. "Actually, yes. Right after How to Look Interested in Boring Conversations and before Yacht Selection 101. Sana laughed, and the sound made Preston's heart skip a beat. "So what brings you here tonight?" he asked. "Work, actually," she replied. "I'm the creative director for Inclusive Edge Fashion. We're donating some designs for the auction." "Wait, Inclusive Edge? I've heard of you. You're making waves in the industry for your size-inclusive, culturally diverse collections." Sana looked slightly surprised. "You follow fashion?" I follow business success stories, Preston said. And yours is impressive. From model to creative director in what, 5 years? 4? She corrected with a hint of pride. But it wasn't exactly a straight line. Lots of doors slammed in my face before I found one to kick open. I'd love to hear more about it, Preston said, surprised by how much he meant it. They spent the next hour talking, barely noticing as the auction began around them. Preston learned that Sana had grown up in Queens with her mother, who worked as a nurse. She'd been scouted as a model at 17, but quickly became frustrated with the industry's narrow beauty standards. At 23, she'd shifted to the creative side, and by 27, she'd helped build Inclusive Edge into a brand that was changing the fashion landscape. Your turn, Sana said, after sharing her story. Tell me something real about Preston Langford, not the press release version. Preston hesitated. He rarely shared anything personal, especially with someone he'd just met, but something about Sana made him want to be honest. The truth is, I've never made a single important decision for myself, he admitted. Where I went to school, what I studied, where I work, where I live, it was all laid out for me before I was born. And you just went along with it? Sana asked, her expression curious rather than judgmental. The path of least resistance, he said with a self-deprecating smile. It's easier to just be who everyone expects you to be. Easier, maybe. But is it better? Before Preston could answer, they were interrupted by a tap on his shoulder. It was his mother, her smile tight and her eyes assessing Sana with barely concealed disapproval. Preston, darling, the Hendersons were asking after you, and the auction is almost over. You haven't bid on anything yet. Catherine's eyes flickered to Sana. I don't believe we've met. I'm Catherine Langford, Preston's mother. Sana Reed, Sana replied, extending her hand with perfect poise. Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Langford. Catherine took Sana's hand briefly, her smile not reaching her eyes. Indeed. Preston? The Hendersons? Please tell them I'll catch up with them soon, Preston said firmly. I'm in the middle of a conversation. Catherine's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded and walked away, though not without one last assessing glance at Sana. Your mother seems protective, Sana said diplomatically. Preston sighed. That's one word for it. I'm sorry about that. Don't apologize, I'm used to it. Sana's expression was composed, but Preston could see a flash of something in her eyes, not hurt, but recognition of a familiar scenario. You shouldn't have to be, he said, feeling a surge of frustration with his mother, with the entire social circle he'd been born into. Sana shrugged. It's just the way the world works, Preston. People like your mother see people like me and make assumptions. It's not right. No, it's not, she agreed, but I stopped needing other people's approval a long time ago. As the evening drew to a close, Preston found himself reluctant to say goodbye. Could I see you again? Maybe dinner this week. Sana considered him for a moment. Why? The directness of her question caught him off guard. Because I've enjoyed talking with you more than anyone I've met in years, he answered honestly, and I'd like to continue the conversation. A slow smile spread across Sana's face. Tuesday, I'm free for dinner. Preston couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this excited about a simple dinner date. He got her number and promised to call with details. As he watched her walk away, he felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, the thrill of the unexpected, of stepping off the carefully planned path his family had laid out for him. Tuesday came, and Preston found himself checking his watch every few minutes as he waited at a small upscale restaurant in Soho, far from his usual Upper East Side haunts. He'd chosen it specifically because it wasn't the kind of place where he'd run into family friends or business associates. When Sana walked in, heads turned. She wore a fitted jumpsuit in a deep blue color that complemented her skin tone perfectly. Her hair was down tonight, natural curls framing her face. She moved with that same confidence that had first drawn Preston to her. You look amazing, he said as he stood to greet her. Thank you, she replied with a smile. You clean up pretty well yourself? Dinner was even better than their first meeting. Without the glittering distractions of the charity event, they talked more deeply. Preston found himself opening up about the pressures of being a Langford, the weight of expectations, the emptiness he sometimes felt despite having everything money could buy. Sana, in turn, told him about growing up with a mother who worked double shifts to provide for her, about facing racism in the modeling industry, about fighting to be taken seriously as a creative director in a world that often saw her as just a pretty face. My mom always told me, don't ever beg for a seat at their table. Build your own table and invite who you want, Sana said. That's what I've tried to do with my career. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, Preston said. The wisest, Sana agreed with a warm smile. She raised me to believe I was descended from queens, even when we were eating boxed mac and cheese for dinner 3 nights in a row. Preston shook his head in admiration. That's the difference between us. You were raised to believe in yourself. I was raised to believe in the Langford name. And are they the same thing? Sana asked. They're supposed to be, Preston said, but lately I'm not so sure. After dinner, they walked through the neighborhood, talking until well past midnight. When they finally parted ways, Preston knew he was already falling for her. That first date turned into a second, then a third. Weeks passed, and Preston found himself happier than he'd ever been. Sana challenged him, made him laugh, helped him see the world through different eyes. For the first time in his life, he was making choices based on what he wanted, not what was expected of him. His family noticed the change. His mother grew increasingly curious about his sudden unavailability for family dinners and social events. His father, William Langford, called him into his office one day to ask about his distraction. The Thompsons mentioned they saw you downtown with a young woman, William said casually, though his eyes were sharp with interest. Someone from the fashion industry? Her name is Sana Reed, Preston said, deciding not to hide anything. She's the creative director at Inclusive Edge Fashion. Ah, William said, nodding as if this explained everything. Well, it's good to expand your network in different industries. Just don't let it interfere with your responsibilities here. Preston knew what his father was really saying. Have your fun, but remember who you are and what's expected of you. But for the first time in his life, Preston was questioning those expectations. 6 months into their relationship, Preston and Sana were having dinner at her apartment in Brooklyn. It was a warm, inviting space filled with art, books, and photographs of her family, so different from the cold, museum-like perfection of the Langford estate. I need to ask you something, Preston said as they sat on her couch after dinner, a glass of wine in hand. That sounds serious, Sana replied, studying his face. It's about the Langford Legacy Ball next month, he said. It's this annual event my family hosts. Board members, politicians, business partners, all the people my family deems important. He took a breath. I want you to come with me. Sana was quiet for a moment. You want to introduce me to your family? Officially? Yes, Preston said firmly. I'm in love with you, Sana. I don't want to hide that from anyone, especially not my family. Sana's eyes widened slightly at his declaration, but then her expression softened. I love you too, Preston. He leaned in to kiss her, his heart soaring, but when they pulled apart, he could see concern in her eyes. What is it? He asked. Are you sure about this? She asked. Taking me to this ball? I know what your family is like, Preston. I know what these kinds of people are like. That's exactly why I want you there, he said. I'm tired of living 2 separate lives, one with you and one with them. I want them to see the woman I love. Sana considered this. What happens if they don't approve? I don't care if they approve, Preston insisted. Their approval isn't what matters to me. Sana smiled, but there was a knowing look in her eyes. It's easy to say that now when they're not in front of you. What do you mean? Preston, I've been the only black person in rooms full of wealthy white people many times. I know how it goes. They'll be polite to my face, maybe, but there will be looks, whispers, subtle comments. Preston felt a flash of defensive anger. My family wouldn't. They would, Sana interrupted gently. They will. The question is, what will you do when it happens? Preston took her hand. I'll stand by you. I won't let anyone make you feel unwelcome. Sana squeezed his hand. I don't need to be accepted. I just need you to stand beside me. I will, he promised. Always. As the date of the Langford Legacy Ball approached, Preston felt both excitement and anxiety. He told his mother he was bringing a date but had been vague about the details. He knew there would be shock, maybe even disapproval, but he was prepared to deal with it. Or so he thought. The night of the ball arrived. The Langford estate in Connecticut was transformed, as it was every year, into a showcase of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers glittered over marble floors. Ice sculptures and elaborate floral arrangements decorated the grand ballroom. Men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns circulated with champagne flutes in hand. Preston waited nervously at the entrance of the estate for Sana, who had insisted on driving herself rather than accompanying him from the city. When her car pulled up, his breath caught in his throat. She emerged wearing a floor-length gown in a deep gold color that made her skin glow. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, adorned with small gold accessories. She looked regal, confident, absolutely stunning. You look incredible, he said, taking her hand and kissing her cheek. "So do you," she replied, adjusting his bow tie slightly. "Ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," he said, offering her his arm. "Remember, no matter what happens, I love you." Sana took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's do this." They walked into the ballroom together, and just as at the charity auction where they'd first met, heads turned. But this time, the looks weren't merely of appreciation. There was surprise, curiosity, and from some barely disguised disapproval. Preston's mother spotted them immediately. Catherine Langford froze mid-conversation, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Then she composed herself and made her way across the room toward them, her society smile firmly in place. "Preston, darling, you're late," she said, kissing his cheek before turning to Sana with a tight smile. "And this must be your guest." "Mother, this is Sana Reed," Preston said firmly. "Sana, my mother, Catherine Langford. We've met briefly at the Children's Hospital auction," Sana said smoothly, extending her hand. "It's nice to see you again, Mrs. Langford." Catherine took Sana's hand briefly. "Have we? I'm afraid I don't recall. So many of these charity events, one blends into another." Preston felt a flash of anger at his mother's obvious lie. She never forgot a face, especially not one as memorable as Sana's. Before he could say anything, his father appeared at Catherine's side. William Langford was tall and imposing, his silver hair and sharp blue eyes giving him an air of authority. "Preston," he said with a nod, "introduce us to your friend." "Father, this is Sana Reed," Preston said, putting his arm around Sana's waist. "My girlfriend." William's eyebrows rose slightly, but he recovered quickly and extended his hand. "Miss Reed, welcome to our home." "Thank you, Mr. Langford," Sana replied with perfect poise. "You have a beautiful estate." "It's been in the family for generations," William said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Preston, I believe the Harringtons were asking after you. Why don't you make the rounds? Show Miss Reed around." It was a dismissal, thinly veiled as a suggestion. Preston nodded stiffly and guided Sana away from his parents. "I'm sorry about that," he murmured. "It's fine," Sana said, though her voice was tight. "I told you what to expect." As they moved through the crowd, Preston introduced Sana to various family friends and business associates. The reactions were varied. Some were genuinely friendly, others barely concealed their surprise or discomfort. Preston's cousin Rebecca approached them at one point, eyeing Sana with open curiosity. "Preston, aren't you going to introduce me?" she asked. "Rebecca, this is Sana Reed," Preston said. "Sana, my cousin Rebecca." Rebecca looked Sana up and down, then leaned in to whisper to Preston, though her voice was loud enough for Sana to hear. "Is that the stylist? Or your +1? Preston felt his face flush with anger. "She's my girlfriend, Rebecca, and she's the creative director at Inclusive Edge Fashion, not a stylist." Rebecca had the grace to look embarrassed, but the damage was done. Sana's expression remained composed, but Preston could feel the tension in her body beside him. The evening continued in a similar vein. Preston's Aunt Vivian pretended not to recognize Sana, even after being introduced. A family friend asked Sana where she was really from, as if Queens couldn't possibly be the true answer. Each interaction was like a small cut, and Preston could see the toll it was taking on Sana, despite her outward composure. Dinner was served in the grand dining room, with crystal and silver gleaming under the light of antique chandeliers. Preston and Sana were seated at a table with his parents, his aunt and uncle, and a few close family friends. The conversation flowed around them, mostly business talk and society gossip. Sana contributed when appropriate, her comments intelligent and well-informed, but Preston could tell she was being largely ignored. Then, during the main course, Catherine turned to Sana with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So, Sana, Preston tells us you work in fashion. How interesting." "Yes, I'm the creative director at Inclusive Edge Fashion," Sana replied. "I don't believe I'm familiar with it," Catherine said. "Is it one of those urban brands?" Preston tensed. "It's one of the fastest-growing fashion companies in the country, Mother. Their approach to inclusivity is revolutionizing the industry." "How modern," Catherine said with a tight smile. "And you were a model before that, I understand? You're quite pretty." Her eyes swept over Sana assessingly, then flickered to Preston. "I just worry what the children might inherit. Socially, of course." The table fell silent. Preston sat frozen, the implications of his mother's words hitting him like a physical blow. She had just suggested that his and Sana's hypothetical children would be at some kind of social disadvantage because of Sana's race. He opened his mouth to speak, to defend Sana, to tell his mother how utterly unacceptable her comment was. But no words came out. He was paralyzed by shock, by shame, by the lifetime of conditioning that had taught him never to make a scene, never to challenge his parents publicly. Sana placed her napkin on the table and stood up. "If you'll excuse me," she said, her voice steady but her eyes filled with quiet disappointment. As she walked away from the table, Preston finally found his voice. "Sana, wait!" But she kept walking, her gold dress shimmering under the lights as she left the dining room. Preston rose to follow her, ignoring his mother's call of, "Preston, don't make a scene." He caught up with Sana in the grand entrance hall. "Sana, I'm so sorry. What my mother said, it was inexcusable." "It wasn't what she said that hurt me, Preston," Sana said, turning to face him. Her eyes were dry, her expression composed, but he could see the pain beneath. "It was what you didn't say. I was shocked. I didn't know how to respond. You let them humiliate me," she said quietly. "Not because you agree, but because you were afraid to disappoint them." The truth of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. "Sana, please." She shook her head, pulling away as he reached for her. "I need to go. Let me come with you," he pleaded. "No," she said firmly. "I need to be alone right now." "Will you call me tomorrow?" he asked, desperation in his voice. Sana looked at him for a long moment. "I don't know, Preston. I need time to think." With that, she walked out the door, leaving Preston standing alone in the grand entrance hall of his family's estate, surrounded by wealth and privilege, and feeling poorer than he'd ever been in his life. Preston stood alone in the entryway of the Langford estate, watching Sana's car disappear down the long driveway. The weight of his failure crushed down on him. He had promised to stand by her, to defend her, and when the moment came, he had frozen. "Preston," his mother's voice called from behind him, "you're making a spectacle of yourself. Come back to dinner." He turned to face Catherine, anger rising in his chest. How could you say that to her? About children inheriting social disadvantages? Catherine waved a dismissive hand. "I was merely pointing out the reality of the situation. These mixed relationships are so complicated. The only thing making it complicated is people like you," Preston said, his voice rising. "Sana is brilliant, successful and kind. Any child would be lucky to inherit those qualities from her." "Don't raise your voice to me," Catherine said sharply. "I'm your mother and I only want what's best for you." "No," Preston said, shaking his head. "You want what's best for the Langford name. There's a difference." He turned and walked toward the front door. "Where are you going?" Catherine called after him. "To fix the mess I made," Preston replied without looking back. "Don't wait up." He drove straight to Sana's apartment in Brooklyn, rehearsing apologies in his head the whole way. But when he arrived and knocked on her door, there was no answer. He called her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. "Sana, it's me," he said after the beep. "I'm outside your door. Please let me in so we can talk. I'm so sorry for what happened tonight. You were right, I should have spoken up. Please give me a chance to make this right." He waited for half an hour, knocking periodically, but Sana didn't come to the door. Finally, defeated, he left and drove back to his Manhattan apartment. Sleep eluded him that night. He kept replaying the dinner scene in his mind, thinking of all the things he should have said to defend Sana, to put his mother in her place. By morning, he was exhausted, but determined to make things right. He called Sana again. This time she answered, but her voice was cool and distant. "What do you want, Preston?" "To apologize," he said. "What happened last night, what I didn't do, it was unforgivable. But I'm asking you to forgive me anyway." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm not angry with you, Preston," Sana finally said. "I'm disappointed, and I'm tired of being the only one fighting in rooms where I'm not wanted." "I want you," Preston said desperately. "In every room, always." "Words are easy," Sana replied. "Actions are what matter. Tell me what to do," he pleaded. "I'll do anything to make this right." "That's the problem," she said softly. "I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to know on your own. I want you to be brave enough to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard." "I can be that person," Preston insisted. "I will be that person. Just give me another chance." Another long pause. "I need some time, Preston. Space to think." "How much time?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Just give me some space." The call ended, and Preston felt like his world was crumbling around him. In just 6 months, Sana had become the center of his universe, the one person who made him feel alive and real. The thought of losing her was unbearable, but he would respect her wishes. He would give her the space she needed. And in the meantime, he would show her, through actions, not words, that he could be the man she deserved. The following Monday, Preston walked into the offices of Langford Ventures with a new sense of purpose. He went straight to his father's office, knocking briefly before entering. William Langford looked up from his computer, surprise registering on his face at his son's unscheduled appearance. "Preston, what can I do for you?" "I want to talk about what happened at the ball," Preston said, sitting down across from his father without being invited. William sighed. "Your mother may have spoken out of turn, but she meant well. She's just concerned about your future." "My future is mine to decide," Preston said firmly, "and I've decided that Sana is part of it." William studied his son's face. "You're serious about this girl?" "Woman," Preston corrected. "And yes, I am. I love her." William leaned back in his chair, considering. "Love is all well and good, Preston, but marriage, if that's where you're heading, is about more than just feelings. It's about compatibility, shared values, similar backgrounds." "Sana and I have the values that matter," Preston insisted. "Honesty, integrity, compassion, the rest is just details. Details that the rest of the world cares about," William pointed out. "The business world, the social world, the worlds you operate in." "Then maybe it's time those worlds changed," Preston said. "And maybe it's time I changed how I operate in them." William's eyes narrowed. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means I'm taking a step back from the family business," Preston said. "I'm going to focus on some independent projects for a while." "This is absurd," William said, his voice rising. "You're going to throw away your responsibilities, your legacy, for a woman you've known for 6 months?" "I'm not throwing anything away," Preston replied calmly. "I'm just choosing what matters most to me, and right now, that's making things right with Sana." He stood to leave, but William's voice stopped him at the door. "Your grandfather built this company from nothing," he said. "I've spent my life expanding it. And now you're willing to walk away from it all for a phase, an infatuation." Preston turned back to his father. "No," he said. "I'm walking away from a lie. The lie that the Langford name is more important than my happiness or the happiness of the woman I love." With that, he walked out, closing the door behind him. Word of Preston's decision spread quickly through the family. His phone blew up with messages from his mother, his aunt, even his cousin Rebecca, all expressing concern, disapproval, or outright anger. He ignored them all. Instead, he focused on a plan. If he was going to win Sana back, he needed to show her that he was capable of standing on his own, of making his own decisions, of being the man she believed he could be. He started by looking into inclusive edge fashion. The company was growing rapidly, but needed investment to expand into new markets. Preston had contacts, experience, and capital that could help, but he knew Sana wouldn't want him to swoop in with his family money and connections. That would feel too much like trying to buy her forgiveness. No, he needed to support her work in a way that respected her independence and expertise. After careful thought, he called Marcus Chen, a friend from business school who now ran a venture capital firm focused on companies with diverse leadership. "Marcus, I've got a proposition for you," Preston said when they met for lunch. "There's a fashion company I think you should look at. Inclusive Edge. They're doing groundbreaking work in size inclusivity and cultural representation." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Since when are you interested in fashion investments?" "Since I met Sana Reed," Preston admitted. "She's their creative director. But that's not why you should invest. You should invest because they're changing the industry, and they're poised for major growth." Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Send me their numbers. If they're as good as you say, I'll take a meeting." It was a start, but Preston knew he needed to do more. He began volunteering at the Creative Youth Center, a non-profit in Harlem that offered arts programs to underprivileged teens. It was an organization that Inclusive Edge partnered with, providing materials, mentorship, and internship opportunities. Preston didn't do it to run into Sana. In fact, he deliberately chose days when he knew she wouldn't be there. He did it because he wanted to understand her world better, to contribute to causes she cared about. The work was eye-opening. For the first time in his life, Preston was interacting with young people from backgrounds completely different from his own. Kids who had talent and dreams, but lacked the resources and connections he had taken for granted his entire life. He helped a 16-year-old boy named Marcus with his portfolio for art school applications. He taught a group of girls how to create a business plan for the jewelry line they wanted to launch. He listened to their stories, learned about their struggles and their triumphs, and found himself deeply invested in their success. One afternoon, after a particularly rewarding session helping a group of teens prepare for a fashion show, Preston checked his phone to find 3 missed calls from his mother. With a sigh, he called her back. "Preston, where have you been?" Catherine demanded. "I've been trying to reach you all day." "I've been volunteering at the Creative Youth Center," he replied. "Volunteering?" Catherine repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. "With your schedule?" "I made time," Preston said. "It's important work," Catherine sighed. "Preston, this has gone far enough. It's been 3 weeks since you walked out of the ball. Your father says you've barely been in the office. The board is starting to ask questions. And all for what? This infatuation with that model." "Her name is Sana," Preston said through gritted teeth. "And she's a creative director, not just a model. And yes, I love her. But that's not why I'm volunteering or taking a step back from the company. I'm doing those things because for the first time in my life, I'm figuring out who I am outside of the Langford name." "This is ridiculous," Catherine snapped. "You know who you are. You're a Langford. That means something in this world." "Maybe it shouldn't mean as much as it does," Preston replied. "Maybe I want to be valued for who I am, not what family I was born into." "Is that what she's been filling your head with? These progressive ideas?" "These are my ideas, Mother," Preston said firmly. "Sana just helped me find the courage to voice them." "Well, I hope you're satisfied," Catherine said. "While you've been finding yourself, your father has been working twice as hard to cover for your absence. He had chest pains yesterday. The doctor says it's just stress, but still, I thought you should know." Preston felt a pang of guilt. "Is he okay?" "He will be. No thanks to you." Catherine's voice was sharp with accusation. "I'll call him," Preston promised, "and I'll come by the office tomorrow." "Good," Catherine said, her tone softening slightly. "And Preston, it's time to end this nonsense with that girl. Come home. Come back to your real life." Preston closed his eyes, fighting down the anger her words provoked. "This is my real life now, Mother. The sooner you accept that, the better." He ended the call before she could respond. True to his word, Preston went to the Langford Ventures offices the next day. He checked in on his father, who looked tired but otherwise fine, and caught up on some of his responsibilities. But he made it clear to everyone that his reduced role was not temporary. It was a new normal. After work, he drove to Brooklyn and parked outside Sana's apartment building. He had no intention of going up. He was respecting her request for space. But he needed to feel close to her, even if just for a few minutes. As he sat in his car, lost in thought, a knock on the window startled him. He looked up to see Sana standing there, her expression a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Preston quickly got out of the car. "Sana, hi. Were you planning to sit out here all night?" she asked. "No, I was just thinking." "About?" "You," he admitted. "Us. Everything." Sana studied his face. "It's been almost a month, Preston. 26 days, he corrected softly. "Not that I'm counting." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "What are you doing here?" "I missed you," he said simply. "I wasn't going to come up. I promised to give you space, but I just wanted to be near." Sana sighed. "Do you want to come up for a cup of tea? Just to talk?" Hope bloomed in Preston's chest. "I'd like that." In her apartment, they sat at the small kitchen table, mugs of tea between them. For a moment neither spoke, the weight of their separation hanging in the air. "I heard about your investment in Inclusive Edge," Sana finally said. "Marcus Chen mentioned you recommended us." Preston nodded. "The company deserves the support. You're doing amazing work." "Thank you," she said. "Though I hope you didn't do it just to impress me." "I did it because it was the right thing to do," Preston said. "But I won't pretend I wasn't hoping you'd hear about it." Sana's lips quirked upward. "Honest, at least." "I'm trying to be," Preston said. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this past month about who I am, what I want, what kind of man I want to be. And what have you discovered?" "That I'm stronger than I thought," he said. "That I can stand up to my family, make my own choices, live my own life." He paused, looking into her eyes. "And that I love you more than I ever thought possible." Sana's expression softened. "I've missed you too, Preston. But I need to know that what happened at the ball won't happen again. I need to know that you'll stand by me, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard." "I will," Preston promised. "I've changed, Sana. Or maybe I'm just finally becoming who I was always meant to be. Either way, I'm not the same man who let you down that night." "Words are still easy," Sana reminded him. "Then let me show you," Preston said. "Give me another chance. Let me prove it to you." Sana considered him for a long moment. "Okay," she finally said. "One more chance, but Preston, I mean it. This is the last one. I won't put myself through that kind of hurt again." "You won't have to," Preston assured her, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I promise." The following weeks were a careful rebuilding of trust. Preston and Sana took things slowly, rediscovering each other, and establishing new boundaries. Preston continued his work at the Creative Youth Centre, now sometimes coordinating his schedule with Sana's, so they could volunteer together. He also maintained his reduced role at Langford Ventures, focusing on specific projects that interested him rather than the general operations his father had always pushed him toward. William was not happy about the arrangement, but seemed to have accepted that pushing too hard would only drive his son further away. Catherine, on the other hand, had not given up. She called Preston regularly, inviting him to family dinners and social events, always carefully noting that he was welcome to bring a guest, but never specifically mentioning Sana. One evening, as Preston and Sana were having dinner at his apartment, his phone rang with his mother's number. "Aren't you going to answer that?" Sana asked when he made no move to pick up. "It's just my mother," Preston said with a sigh. "Probably calling to invite me to another function where she can parade eligible society women in front of me." Sana studied him thoughtfully. "You know, avoiding your family isn't the same as standing up to them." Preston looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean that running away from the problem doesn't solve it," Sana explained. "If you really want to show me, and yourself, that you've changed, you need to face them, not hide from them." Preston considered her words. "You're right," he admitted. "I've been taking the easy way out." He picked up his phone and called his mother back. "Preston," Catherine answered, a note of surprise in her voice. "I didn't expect you to call back so soon." "What did you want, Mother?" Preston asked, keeping his tone neutral. "I was calling about the Thompson Charity Gala next weekend," Catherine said. "Your father and I are attending, and we thought you might join us. The Thompsons' daughter Olivia will be there. You remember her from Yale? She's just returned from a year in Paris, and she specifically asked if you would be attending." Preston took a deep breath, looking at Sana across the table. "I'd be happy to attend, Mother, with Sana as my date." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Preston, I don't think that's a good idea. The Thompsons are very traditional, and after what happened at our ball—" "What happened at your ball is that my girlfriend was treated disrespectfully by my family," Preston interrupted firmly. "If you want me at the Thompson Gala, Sana comes too. That's non-negotiable." Another pause. "Very well," Catherine finally said, her voice tight. "I'll let the Thompsons know you'll be bringing a guest." "Thank you," Preston said. "And Mother, I expect everyone to be on their best behavior." "Including you and Father." "We are always on our best behavior," Catherine replied stiffly. "It's what being a Langford means." After they hung up, Sana looked at Preston with raised eyebrows. "Are you sure about this? Another high society event?" "Absolutely sure," Preston said. "You were right. I need to face them, not hide from them, and I need to show them, and you, that I'm not afraid to stand by your side, no matter who's watching." Sana reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm proud of you, Preston. That couldn't have been easy." "It's getting easier," he said with a smile. "Standing up for what matters always should be." The night of the Thompson Gala arrived. Preston was nervous but determined as he and Sana rode in the car to the Thompson estate, another grand Connecticut property, not unlike his family's. "You look beautiful," he told Sana, admiring her in a sleek emerald green dress that contrasted gorgeously with her skin tone. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, and gold earrings dangled from her ears. "And you look handsome as always," she replied, straightening his bow tie. "Are you ready for this?" "As long as we're together, I'm ready for anything," he said, bringing her hand to his lips. The Thompson estate was lit up like a Christmas tree, with valets and staff directing guests from their cars to the grand entrance. As Preston and Sana walked in, he kept his hand firmly at the small of her back, a silent declaration that they were together. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of tuxedos and evening gowns, with a string quartet playing softly in the corner. Preston spotted his parents immediately, standing with the Thompsons near the champagne fountain. "Showtime," he murmured to Sana, who squeezed his hand in response. As they approached, Preston saw his mother's eyes widen slightly, before her society mask slipped into place. His father's expression remained impassive, but there was a tightness around his mouth that betrayed his displeasure. "Preston, dear," Catherine said, leaning in to kiss his cheek. "And Sana, how nice of you to join us." "Wouldn't miss it," Preston said firmly. "Mother, Father, you remember Sana Reed. Sana, you know my parents, and these are our hosts, James and Eleanor Thompson." James Thompson, a tall man with silver hair and an imposing presence, looked Sana up and down with undisguised curiosity. "Miss Reed, I don't believe we've had the pleasure. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Thompson," Sana said, extending her hand with perfect poise. "You have a lovely home." "Thank you," Eleanor Thompson replied, her eyes darting between Sana and Preston with evident surprise. "Preston, Olivia was just asking about you. She's over by the string quartet." It was a not-so-subtle hint, and Preston chose to ignore it. "I'm sure I'll run into her later. Sana and I were hoping to get a drink first. If you'll excuse us." He guided Sana away from the group, feeling his mother's eyes burning into his back. "Well, that went about as expected," Sana murmured as they reached the bar. "It could have been worse," Preston said. "At least they were civil." "Civil is a low bar, Preston." "I know," he agreed, "but it's a start. Rome wasn't built in a day, and my family's prejudices won't be dismantled in one either." They got their drinks and mingled, Preston introducing Sana to various business associates and family friends. The reactions were mixed. Some people were genuinely friendly, others barely concealed their surprise or disapproval. At one point, they ran into Olivia Thompson, a willowy blonde in a pale blue gown. Her eyes widened when Preston introduced Sana as his girlfriend. "How unexpected," Olivia said, her gaze moving between them. "I had heard you were seeing someone, Preston, but I had no idea it was so serious." "Very serious," Preston confirmed, putting his arm around Sana's waist. "Well, I hope you'll both excuse me," Olivia said with a tight smile. "I need to check on something with the caterer." As she walked away, Sana let out a small laugh. "I think you just crushed someone's hopes and dreams." "She'll survive," Preston said dryly. "Olivia Thompson has had her sights set on me since we were in prep school together. My mother's been trying to push us together for years." "Ah, so that's why your mother was so eager for you to attend tonight." "Exactly," Preston confirmed. "Another attempt at matchmaking, thwarted by my actually having fallen in love with someone of my own choosing. How inconvenient for her," Sana said with a smile. The evening continued relatively smoothly until dinner was served. Preston and Sana were seated at a table with his parents, the Thompsons, and a few other prominent couples. The conversation was stilted at first, with Catherine making pointed remarks about Preston's reduced role at the company. "We're just hoping this sabbatical of his doesn't last too much longer," she said to Eleanor Thompson. "The board is getting restless." "It's not a sabbatical, Mother," Preston corrected. "It's a permanent change in my role. I'm focusing on projects that interest me, rather than trying to be involved in every aspect of the business." "And what exactly are these interesting projects?" his father asked, a hint of challenge in his voice. "Currently, I'm working on a partnership with Creative Youth Center in Harlem," Preston said. "We're developing a program to provide business education and mentorship to young entrepreneurs from underserved communities." "Charity work," William said dismissively. "Admirable, but hardly a career." "It's not charity," Preston replied firmly. "It's investment. These kids have incredible talent and ideas. They just lack the resources and connections that we take for granted. By helping them now, we're creating the next generation of business leaders and innovators." "Preston has been amazing with the kids," Sana added. "They really respond to his teaching style." Catherine's eyebrows rose. "You're involved with this center as well, Sana?" "Yes, Inclusive Edge is one of their corporate sponsors," Sana explained. "We provide materials, mentorship, and internship opportunities." "How community-minded," Catherine said with a thin smile, "though I would think your background might make it difficult to understand the needs of truly disadvantaged youth." Preston felt Sana stiffen beside him. This time he didn't hesitate. "What exactly do you mean by that, Mother?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Well, I simply meant that Sana comes from a middle-class family in Queens, not true poverty," Catherine said, attempting to backpedal. "It was merely an observation." "An unnecessary and uninformed one," Preston said coldly. "Sana grew up with a single mother who worked multiple jobs to provide for her. She knows more about overcoming obstacles than anyone at this table, and she's built an incredible career through talent and hard work, not family connections." The table fell silent, all eyes on Preston and Catherine. "I was simply making conversation," Catherine said tightly. "There's no need to be defensive." "There's every need when you insist on making coded remarks about my girlfriend," Preston replied. "I've had enough of it, Mother. Either you learn to treat Sana with respect or you'll be seeing a lot less of me." William cleared his throat. "I think we all need to calm down. This is hardly the place for a family disagreement." "You're right, Father," Preston agreed. "It isn't, which is why Mother should save her passive-aggressive comments for when we're in private." He turned to James Thompson. "I apologize for the tension, James. This was meant to be a celebration of your charity work, not a family therapy session. James Thompson, looking uncomfortable, nodded. These things happen. Perhaps we should change the subject. Eleanor was just telling me about your new marketing campaign, William. Quite innovative, from what I hear. The conversation shifted to safer topics, but the damage was done. The atmosphere remained tense throughout dinner, with Catherine barely speaking and William making strained attempts at normal conversation. After dinner, as the dancing began, Preston led Sana to the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, she looked up at him with a mix of admiration and concern. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "That can't have been easy." "Actually, it was," Preston said, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Defending you, standing up to my mother, it felt right. Natural." Sana smiled, a genuine, warm smile that lit up her entire face. "You've changed, Preston Langford. For the better, I hope," he said, pulling her closer. "Definitely for the better," she confirmed, resting her head on his shoulder as they continued to dance, oblivious to the stares and whispers around them. Later that night, as they were preparing to leave, William approached Preston while Sana was retrieving her wrap from the coat check. "Your mother is upset," he said without preamble. "She brought it on herself," Preston replied. "I warned her to be respectful." William sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. "This isn't just about tonight, Preston. It's about the future. Your future. The company's future." "What are you saying, Father?" "I'm saying that your mother and I have concerns about the direction you're taking, both personally and professionally." William looked his son directly in the eyes. "If you continue down this path, with this woman, with this reduced role at the company, there may be consequences." Preston felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm being realistic," William said. "The board has questions. The family has concerns. And as your father, I have to wonder if you're throwing away everything we've built for an phase." Preston's jaw tightened. Sana is not a phase, and if the family and the board can't accept that, then maybe I don't want to be part of any of it anymore. William's eyes widened slightly. "You don't mean that." "I do," Preston said firmly. "I love Sana. I want a future with her. And if that means walking away from the Langford name and fortune, then so be it." "Don't be dramatic," William scoffed. "You're a Langford. It's in your blood." "Maybe it's time for new blood," Preston replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me, my girlfriend is waiting." He walked away, leaving his father staring after him in disbelief. Sana was waiting by the entrance, her wrap around her shoulders. "Everything okay?" she asked, noting his tense expression. "Just another attempt to bring me to heel," Preston said, taking her hand. It didn't work. Outside, as they waited for their car, Sana turned to him. "Preston, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest." "Always," he promised. "Are you sure about us?" "About me?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "Your family is making it very clear that they don't approve. That could mean losing your inheritance, your position at the company, everything you've been raised to value. I need to know that you've really thought this through." Preston took both of her hands in his. "Sana, listen to me. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. Yes, I was raised to value the Langford name, the family fortune, my position in society. But what good is any of that if I'm not happy, if I'm living a life chosen for me rather than by me? I don't want you to wake up one day and resent me for what you gave up," Sana said softly. "That will never happen," Preston assured her, "because I'm not giving up anything that matters. I'm gaining everything that does." He cupped her face gently. "I love you, Sana Reed. And if my family can't accept that, then that's their loss, not mine." Sana's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I love you too, and I'm not going anywhere." As their car pulled up, Preston helped her in, then slid in beside her. As they drove away from the Thompson estate, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He had stood up to his family, defended the woman he loved, and made his position clear. It wasn't going to be easy. His parents wouldn't give up without a fight. The society they moved in wouldn't change overnight. But for the first time in his life, Preston was choosing his own path, and with Sana by his side, he knew it was the right one. The weeks following the Thompson Gala marked a turning point in Preston and Sana's relationship. While they grew closer, the rift between Preston and his family widened. Catherine had stopped calling altogether, communicating only through terse text messages about family obligations. William was slightly more direct, sending emails about company matters that required Preston's attention, but always with a cool formality that hadn't existed before. Preston tried not to let it bother him, focusing instead on his work with the Creative Youth Center and his relationship with Sana. They fell into a comfortable routine, spending most nights together either at his Manhattan apartment or her Brooklyn home. One Sunday morning, as they lay in bed in Sana's apartment, sunlight streaming through the curtains, Preston found himself studying her face as she slept. The curve of her cheek, the fullness of her lips, the sweep of her eyelashes against her skin. She was breathtaking, and he couldn't imagine his life without her now. As if sensing his gaze, Sana's eyes fluttered open. "Why are you staring at me?" she asked, her voice husky with sleep. "Because you're beautiful," Preston replied simply. "And because I love you," she smiled, stretching like a cat. "I love you too, even with your morning breath." Preston laughed and pulled her close. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous," Sana teased. "I'm serious," he said, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her. "We spend almost every night together anyway. What if we made it official? Move in together?" Sana's eyebrows rose. "You want me to move into your place? Or I could move in here," Preston offered quickly. "Or we could find a new place together, somewhere that's ours from the start." Sana sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "That's a big step, Preston." "I know," he acknowledged, "but I'm ready for it. I want to build a life with you, Sana. This would be the first step." She looked at him thoughtfully. "What about your family? They barely tolerate me as your girlfriend. How do you think they'll react to us living together?" "I don't care how they react," Preston said firmly. "This is about us, not them," Sana sighed. "It's not that simple, and you know it. Your family is a huge part of your life, whether you want to admit it or not. Less and less every day," Preston pointed out. "But still there," Sana insisted. "And they always will be. They're your blood." Preston took her hand. "What are you really worried about, Sana? Is it my family, or is it something else?" Sana was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I guess I'm afraid of moving too fast, of getting too comfortable and then having it all fall apart. Like, what if we move in together, and then your family pressures you enough that you start to doubt us? Or what if you wake up one day and realize you miss your old life more than you thought?" "That won't happen," Preston assured her. "You can't know that for sure," Sana said. "Preston, I grew up watching my mum struggle after my dad left. He decided one day that family life wasn't for him after all, that he wanted his freedom back. I was 8. I remember how much it hurt her, how much it hurt me. I promised myself I'd never put myself in that position." Preston felt a pang in his chest at the vulnerability in her voice. "I'm not your father, Sana. I'm not going to wake up one day and decide I want out." "Everyone says that at the beginning," Sana said with a sad smile. "But life happens. People change their minds." "Not about this," Preston insisted. "Not about you." Sana looked into his eyes, searching for reassurance. "I need a little more time, not because I don't love you, but because this is a huge step for me." Preston nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "I understand. We'll wait until you're ready." Sana leaned forward and kissed him softly. "Thank you for understanding." Later that day, as they were having brunch at a small cafe near Sana's apartment, Preston's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "Hey, it's my father," he said, surprised. William rarely called on weekends. "You should answer it," Sana encouraged. Preston nodded and accepted the call. "Hello, Father." "Preston," William's voice sounded strained. "I need you to come to the house, today." "Why, what's wrong?" "It's your mother. She's not well. The doctor is with her now, but she's asking for you." Preston felt a cold knot of fear in his stomach. "What happened? Is she sick?" "She collapsed this morning," William explained, his voice tight with worry. "Chest pains. They think it might be her heart." "I'll be there as soon as I can," Preston promised, already signaling for the check. "Is there anything I can do? Should I call anyone?" "Just come," William said. "And Preston, come alone. Your mother is in a fragile state. She doesn't need any additional stress." Preston's jaw tightened at the implication. "I understand. I'll be there soon." After hanging up, he explained the situation to Sana. "You should go right away," she said immediately. "Your mother needs you." "My father asked me to come alone," Preston said, the anger evident in his voice. "He doesn't want me to bring you." Sana's expression softened. "Preston, that's completely understandable. Your mother is ill. This isn't the time to make a point about our relationship." "But it's exactly what they've been doing all along," Preston argued. "Using family obligations to keep us separate. What if this is just another manipulation? Do you really believe your father would lie about your mother's health?" Sana asked gently. Preston sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, he wouldn't do that." "Then go. Be with your family. I'll be here when you get back." Preston looked at her gratefully. What did I do to deserve you? I ask myself the same question every day, Sana teased, trying to lighten the mood. Now go. Call me later and let me know how she's doing. Preston kissed her goodbye and hurried out, hailing a taxi to take him to his car garage. The drive to Connecticut seemed to take forever, his mind racing with worry about his mother and frustration with his father's stipulation that he come alone. When he finally arrived at the Langford estate, he was met at the door by his father. William looked haggard, his normally perfect appearance disheveled, his silver hair uncombed. "How is she?" Preston asked immediately. "Resting," William replied, leading him into the house. "The doctor gave her something for the pain. They're running tests, but they want to take her to the hospital for more extensive examination." "What happened exactly?" "She was in the garden, supervising the preparations for the summer garden party," William explained. "She suddenly clutched her chest and collapsed. The gardener found her and called for help. They reached the master bedroom where Catherine was lying in bed, looking pale and small against the pillows. A woman in a white coat, presumably the doctor, was checking her vitals. "Mother," Preston said softly, approaching the bed. Catherine's eyes fluttered open. "Preston, you came." "Of course I came," he said, taking her hand. It felt cool and frail in his grip. "How are you feeling?" "Better now that you're here," she said with a weak smile. "The doctor thinks it might be angina, or possibly just stress." Preston looked up at the doctor, who nodded. "We need to run more tests to be sure, but her symptoms are consistent with angina. I've recommended that she go to the hospital for observation and further testing, and I've told her that's unnecessary," Catherine said with a hint of her usual stubbornness. "I'll be fine with rest." "Mother, if the doctor thinks you should go to the hospital, you should listen," Preston urged. Catherine squeezed his hand. "I will. But first I wanted to see you. We've barely spoken in weeks." Preston felt a pang of guilt. "I know, I'm sorry about that." "No, I'm the one who should apologize," Catherine said, surprising him. "I've been difficult about your relationship with Sana." Preston stared at his mother in shock. This was the last thing he had expected to hear. "This episode has made me think," Catherine continued. "Life is too short for such stubbornness. You're my only son, Preston. I don't want to lose you over this." "You're not going to lose me, Mother," Preston assured her. "But I felt like I already am," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "You've been pulling away from us, from the family, from the company, all because we couldn't accept your choice." Preston didn't know what to say. This vulnerable, emotional side of his mother was completely unfamiliar to him. "I want you to bring her to dinner," Catherine said suddenly. "Sana, once I'm feeling better, I want to try again to get to know her properly this time." "Really?" Preston couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. "Really," Catherine confirmed. "No coded remarks, no passive-aggressive comments. Just a normal family dinner." Preston felt a mixture of hope and wariness. "I'd like that, and I think Sana would too." "Good," Catherine said, closing her eyes as if the conversation had exhausted her. "That's settled then." The doctor stepped forward. "Mrs. Langford needs to rest now, and we really should get her to the hospital for those tests." Catherine nodded weakly. "Very well, doctor, if you insist." William organized for an ambulance to take Catherine to Greenwich Hospital, where she was admitted for observation and testing. Preston and his father spent the day there, waiting for results and taking turns sitting with her. During a quiet moment when William had gone to get coffee, Preston sat beside his mother's hospital bed, watching her sleep. Despite their differences, despite all the tension of the past months, seeing her like this, vulnerable, mortal, reminded him of how much he loved her. Catherine stirred and opened her eyes. "You're still here," she murmured. "Of course," Preston said. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away." She smiled weakly. "You always were a dutiful son, until recently." "Mother." "No, let me finish," she interrupted. "I understand now why you've been pulling away. We, your father and I, we've been trying to control your life for too long, making decisions for you, pushing you in directions we thought were best." "You wanted what was best for me," Preston acknowledged. "What we thought was best," Catherine corrected. "But maybe we were wrong. Maybe what's best for you is someone we never considered." Preston was stunned by this admission. "Are you saying you approve of Sana?" Catherine sighed. "I'm saying I'm willing to try, for your sake, because seeing you these past months, standing up for her, fighting for her, I've never seen you so passionate about anything, or anyone." "I love her, Mother," Preston said simply. "I can see that now," Catherine admitted. "And if she makes you happy, then I need to accept that." Preston felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Catherine patted his hand. Just promise me you won't abandon the family completely. Your father needs you at the company, even if it's in a different role than we planned, and I need my son in my life. I promise, Preston said, squeezing her hand, as long as you respect my choices. I'll try, Catherine said. That's all I can offer right now, but I will try. It was more than Preston had ever expected, and he felt a surge of hope that maybe, just maybe, his worlds could coexist after all. The doctors diagnosed Catherine with stress-induced angina and prescribed medication and lifestyle changes. She was released from the hospital after 2 days, with strict instructions to rest and avoid stressful situations. When Preston told Sana about his mother's offer of dinner and her promise to try to accept their relationship, Sana was cautiously optimistic. People can change, she said, as they sat in her apartment that evening, especially when they're faced with their own mortality. I hope you're right, Preston said, but I'm still wary. My mother has never been one to admit she's wrong or change her mind easily. Then this is a significant step, Sana pointed out. We should give her the benefit of the doubt. Preston smiled, pulling her close. When did you become the advocate for my mother? I'm not her advocate, Sana clarified. I'm yours, and I know how much your family means to you despite everything. If there's a chance to heal this rift, we should take it. Preston kissed the top of her head. You're amazing, you know that. After everything they've put you through, you're still willing to give them another chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, Sana said. But just to be clear, it's their last one. If your mother makes one more racist or classist comment to me, I'm out. Fair enough, Preston agreed. And I'll be right behind you. The dinner was set for the following weekend. Once Catherine had had time to recover, Preston was a bundle of nerves as he and Sana drove to the Langford estate. It's going to be fine, Sana assured him, squeezing his hand. Just breathe. I just want everything to go well, Preston said. For all of us. Me too, Sana said. But if it doesn't, we'll handle it. Together. When they arrived, William met them at the door. He was formal but not cold, shaking Sana's hand and thanking her for coming. Catherine is in the sitting room, he said, leading the way. She's still a bit weak, so we thought we'd have drinks there before moving to the dining room. Catherine was sitting in an armchair by the fireplace, looking pale but composed in a simple blue dress. She rose carefully as they entered. Preston, Sana, thank you for coming, she said, her voice warm if a bit tentative. Thank you for inviting us, Mrs. Langford, Sana replied with perfect poise. How are you feeling? Much better, thank you, Catherine said, gesturing for them to sit. The doctors say I need to avoid stress and make some lifestyle changes, but I should make a full recovery. I'm glad to hear it, Sana said sincerely. William offered drinks, and they spent the next half hour making somewhat stilted but civil conversation. Catherine asked Sana about her work at Inclusive Edge, seeming genuinely interested in her responses. William and Preston discussed company matters without the underlying tension that had characterized their recent interactions. By the time they moved to the dining room for dinner, the atmosphere had relaxed considerably. Preston found himself daring to hope that this might be a new beginning for all of them. The meal itself was delicious, prepared by the Langfords' longtime chef. As they ate, the conversation flowed more naturally. Catherine asked Sana about her upbringing in Queens, listening attentively to her stories about her mother's sacrifices and the values she had instilled in her daughter. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman, Catherine commented. I'd like to meet her someday. Sana looked surprised but pleased. I'm sure she'd like that too. She's always curious about Preston's family. What does she think of him? William asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Sansa glanced at Preston with a small smile. She thinks he's too pretty to be trusted, but likes that he has good manners. Preston laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. You should, Sana assured him. Her standards are extremely high. As the evening progressed, Preston watched in amazement as his parents made a genuine effort to get to know Sana. There were no coded remarks, no passive-aggressive comments, just conversation, sometimes awkward, but always respectful. After dinner, as they were having coffee in the sitting room, Catherine brought up a subject that surprised them all. Preston mentioned that you work with the Creative Youth Center, she said to Sana. I've been thinking about getting involved with some charitable work, now that the doctors want me to step back from some of my social obligations. Would you tell me more about it? Sana's face lit up as she described the center's programs and the impact they had on the young people they served. Catherine listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about how the center was funded and what its greatest needs were. Perhaps the Langford Foundation could help, she suggested, glancing at William. We're always looking for worthwhile causes to support. That would be wonderful, Sana said enthusiastically. They could use the funding, especially for the scholarship program. I'll look into it, William promised. Any organization that has captured both your and Preston's interest must be doing important work. As the evening drew to a close, Preston felt a sense of relief and cautious optimism. The dinner had gone better than he could have hoped, with his parents making a visible effort to accept Sana and understand her world. When they said their goodbyes, Catherine took Sana's hand in both of hers. "Thank you for giving us another chance," she said quietly. "I know we didn't make the best first impression. Thank you for being willing to start fresh," Sana replied, with a warm smile. "It means a lot to both of us." In the car on the way back to the city, Preston couldn't stop grinning. "That went well, right? I'm not imagining it?" "It went surprisingly well," Sana agreed, looking thoughtful. "Your mother seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me." "I told you she was trying to change," Preston said, taking her hand. "This could be the beginning of something good." Sana squeezed his hand, but still looked pensive. "I hope so. But people don't change overnight, Preston. This is a good start, but we still have a long way to go." "I know," he acknowledged, "but it's progress, and that's something to celebrate." In the weeks that followed, the tentative truce between Preston's family and Sana blossomed into something closer to acceptance. Catherine followed through on her interest in the Creative Youth Centre, arranging for the Langford Foundation to make a substantial donation. She even visited the centre with Preston and Sana, meeting some of the young people they worked with and seeing firsthand the impact of the programs. William, too, made efforts to include Sana in family activities. He invited her and Preston to business dinners, introducing Sana to his colleagues with genuine respect. He even sought her opinion on a marketing campaign Langford Ventures was developing for a fashion-adjacent brand, valuing her industry expertise. For Preston, watching his two worlds begin to merge was both surreal and deeply satisfying. He had never imagined his parents could change so dramatically, could open their minds and hearts to someone so different from the partners they had envisioned for him. One evening, as he and Sana were having dinner at his apartment, he brought up the subject that had been on his mind for weeks. "I've been thinking about our conversation about moving in together," he said carefully. "I know you wanted more time, and I respect that, but I wanted to check in, see where your head is at now." Sana put down her fork, considering. "Things have changed since we last talked about it," she acknowledged. "Your family has made real efforts to accept me, to accept us." "They have," Preston agreed, "and I think they'll continue to do so." "I'm still cautious," Sana admitted. "Old habits die hard, and your mother hasn't completely shed her prejudices, but I can see that she's trying, and that means something." "So what are you thinking?" Preston asked, trying to keep the hope from his voice. Sana smiled, reaching across the table to take his hand. "I'm thinking that maybe it's time to take that next step, if the offer still stands." Preston's face broke into a wide grin. "It absolutely still stands. You want to move in together?" "Yes," Sana said, her smile matching his. "But I have one condition." "Name it." "I don't want to move into your place, and I don't want you to move into mine," she said. "I want us to find a new place together, somewhere that's ours from the start. No history, no baggage, just us building something new." "I love that idea," Preston said enthusiastically. "We can start looking right away." "Any preferences on neighborhood?" "Somewhere between our worlds," Sana suggested. "Not too uptown, not too downtown. Somewhere we can both feel at home." They spent the rest of the evening discussing possibilities, excited about this new chapter in their relationship. It felt right, Preston thought, taking this step now that they had navigated the biggest obstacle in their relationship, his family's acceptance. The following weekend, they began their search for a new home. They looked at apartments in various neighborhoods, weighing the pros and cons of each. Some were too close to Preston's family's social circle, others too far from Sana's work. But they enjoyed the process, imagining their life together in each space they visited. On a Sunday afternoon they found it, a spacious loft in a converted factory building in Chelsea. It had high ceilings, large windows that flooded the space with light, and an open floor plan that would allow them to make it truly their own. The neighborhood was vibrant and diverse, with art galleries, restaurants and shops within walking distance. "This is it," Sana said as they stood in the empty space, sunlight streaming through the windows. "I can see us here." Preston wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "So can I, our first home together." They made an offer that day, and within a week it was accepted. The process of buying the loft and making it their own consumed the next few months. They chose furniture together, argued good-naturedly about paint colors, and compromised on decor styles. Preston's minimalist aesthetic blended with Sana's more vibrant, eclectic taste to create a space that reflected both of their personalities. Through it all, Preston's parents remained supportive, if occasionally bemused by some of their design choices. Catherine even offered to help with the decorating, though she quickly deferred to Sana's expertise when it became clear that their tastes differed significantly. "It's your home," she said graciously during one shopping trip. "It should reflect who you are as a couple, not my preferences." It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about how far she had come in accepting Sana and respecting their relationship. The night before they were set to move into their new home, Preston and Sana had dinner with Catherine and William at a restaurant in the city. It was a celebration of sorts, marking not just the new home, but the new understanding between them all. "A toast," William said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings and happy homes?" They all clinked glasses, smiling. The tension that had once characterized these family gatherings was gone, replaced by a genuine, if still sometimes awkward, warmth. After dinner, as they were saying their goodbyes outside the restaurant, Catherine pulled Sana aside for a private word. "I want you to know," she said softly, "that I see how happy you make my son, and I'm grateful for that." Sana was touched by the sincerity in Catherine's voice. "Thank you for giving us a chance to show you that." "I should have done so sooner," Catherine admitted, "but I'm glad we got here eventually." As Preston and Sana walked back to his apartment, their last night before moving into their new home, Preston felt a sense of completion. The journey had been difficult, with moments of pain and doubt, but they had emerged stronger for it. His family had grown, not just to include Sana, but to become more open, more accepting, more true to the values they claimed to uphold. "Happy?" he asked, squeezing Sana's hand as they walked. "Very," she confirmed with a smile. "Though I still can't believe we're actually moving in together tomorrow. It feels surreal." "In a good way, I hope," Preston said. "In the best way," Sana assured him. "I never thought I'd find someone like you, Preston. Someone who would fight for me, stand by me, choose me every day. I always will," he promised, stopping to pull her into his arms on the sidewalk. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Sana Reed. You've made me braver, stronger, more myself than I've ever been." Sana's eyes shone with emotion. "I love you, Preston Langford. All of you. The society heir and the man who volunteers with kids from Harlem, the business executive and the guy who dances terribly in his kitchen when he thinks no one is watching." Preston laughed. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Too late," she teased. "I've seen it all and I love every bit." They continued their walk home, talking about the future, making plans. Neither of them could know what challenges lay ahead, but they were facing them together, with the unexpected blessing of family support behind them. As they fell asleep that night, in Preston's apartment for the last time, he thought about how far they had come. From that first meeting at the charity auction to the disastrous Langford Legacy Ball, from the painful separation to the healing reconciliation with his family, every step had led them here, to the threshold of a life together. Tomorrow they would wake up and move into their new home, the first chapter in the rest of their story. A story they would write together, on their own terms, with love as its foundation. Preston drifted off to sleep with Sana in his arms, grateful for the woman who had stolen not just a room but his heart, and in doing so had helped him find himself. 6 months had passed since Preston and Sana moved into their Chelsea loft. Their home had become a reflection of their relationship, a beautiful blend of their different styles and backgrounds, comfortable yet elegant, warm and inviting. They had settled into a rhythm of life together, balancing their demanding careers with their personal time. Preston had found a new role at Langford Ventures, heading up a division focused on socially responsible investments. The position allowed him to use his business acumen while staying true to the values he and Sana shared. His father had been skeptical at first, but had come to respect Preston's vision when the division began showing promising returns. Sana's career was thriving as well. Under her creative direction, Inclusive Edge Fashion had expanded into new markets and launched a successful menswear line. Her profile in the industry had risen, with fashion magazines featuring her as a visionary, bringing much-needed change to a traditionally exclusive world. Their personal lives had flourished alongside their professional success. They had built a circle of friends that included people from both their worlds, Preston's business associates and old school friends, mingling easily with Sana's creative colleagues and her childhood friends from Queens. Their dinner parties had become sought-after invitations, known for interesting conversation and genuine warmth. Even Preston's family had become part of this new life. Catherine had followed through on her interest in the Creative Youth Centre, joining its board of directors and becoming one of its most passionate advocates. William had come to respect Sana's business acumen, occasionally seeking her input on fashion-related investments. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, old prejudices that occasionally surfaced in subtle ways, but the transformation from those first disastrous encounters to their current relationship was remarkable. Both sides had made efforts to understand and accept each other, building bridges across the divides of race, class, and upbringing. On a crisp autumn evening, Preston stood in their kitchen, preparing dinner while Sana finished up some work in their home office. This was their Friday night ritual, cooking together, sharing wine and conversation, unwinding from the week. As he chopped vegetables, Preston found himself thinking about how complete his life felt now. For the first time, he was living authentically, making his own choices, following his own path. And Sana was at the center of it all, his partner, his love, his home. He had been carrying a small velvet box in his pocket for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. Maybe tonight, he thought, smiling to himself. The sound of Sana's phone ringing interrupted his thoughts. He heard her answer, her voice initially casual, then shifting to concern. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Slow down." There was a long pause. "Which hospital?" "Okay, I'm on my way." Preston set down his knife as Sana rushed into the kitchen, her face pale with worry. "What happened?" he asked immediately. "It's my mum," Sana said, already reaching for her purse. "She fell at work. They think she might have broken her hip. She's at Queen's Medical Center." "I'll drive you," Preston said without hesitation, turning off the stove and grabbing his keys. "We can be there in 30 minutes if traffic isn't too bad." The drive to Queen's was tense, Sana making calls to get more information, while Preston navigated through Friday evening traffic. By the time they arrived at the hospital, they knew that Janet Reed had indeed broken her hip and would need surgery. They found her in the emergency department, looking small and vulnerable on the hospital bed, but still maintaining her characteristic dignity. At 58, Janet Reed was still a striking woman, with the same rich brown skin and expressive eyes as her daughter. She had raised Sana alone after her husband left, working as a nurse to provide for them both. "Mom," Sana said, rushing to her bedside. "How are you feeling?" "Like I took a foolish fall and now I'm causing everyone trouble," Janet replied with a grimace of pain. "You didn't need to rush over here." "Don't be ridiculous," Sana scolded gently. "Of course we came." Janet's eyes moved to Preston, who stood just behind Sana. "Preston, thank you for bringing her." "No thanks needed," he assured her, stepping forward to squeeze her hand. "What have the doctors said?" "I need surgery," Janet said matter-of-factly, "scheduled for tomorrow morning. Then weeks of physical therapy and recovery. It's going to be a nuisance." "Have they said how long you'll be in the hospital?" Sana asked. 5 to 7 days, then they expect me to go home. But I'll need help. They're talking about home health aides visiting nurses. Sana and Preston exchanged a look, coming to a silent agreement. "You'll stay with us," Sana said firmly. "After you're discharged. The loft has the guest room on the main level. No stairs to worry about, it's perfect." Janet began to shake her head. "I couldn't impose like that. You two have your own lives." "It's not an imposition," Preston assured her. "We want to help, Janet. Please let us." Janet looked between them, seeing their determination. "You're both stubborn, aren't you? Fine, but just until I can manage on my own again." The nurse came in then to take Janet for pre-surgical tests, and Sana and Preston stepped out to the waiting area. "Are you sure about this?" Sana asked once they were alone. "Having my mum stay with us for weeks, that's a big ask." "I'm absolutely sure," Preston said, taking her hand. "She's family, Sana. Of course she should stay with us." Sana's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. That means more than you know." They spent the night at the hospital, taking turns dozing in uncomfortable chairs. In the morning, Janet was taken to surgery, which was successful, but confirmed that her recovery would be lengthy and challenging. As they had planned, Janet came to stay with them after her discharge from the hospital. Their guest room was transformed with hospital equipment, a specialized bed, a walker, everything needed for her recovery. Preston hired the best physical therapist in the city to come to their home, determined that Janet would get the best care possible. The first few weeks were difficult. Janet was in pain and frustrated by her limited mobility. Sana was worried and stretched thin, trying to balance her work responsibilities with caring for her mother. Preston did what he could to support them both, taking on household tasks, coordinating medical appointments, and providing emotional support. It was during this time that he truly came to understand the strength of the bond between Sana and her mother. He watched them together, their inside jokes, their shared stories, the way they could communicate with just a look. Janet had raised Sana to be independent and confident, to never shrink herself to make others comfortable. And Sana had internalized those lessons, becoming the remarkable woman Preston had fallen in love with. One evening, about 3 weeks into Janet's stay, Preston came home to find Sana asleep on the couch, exhausted from a long day at work, followed by helping her mother. Janet was awake, sitting in her wheelchair by the window, looking out at the city lights. "Can I get you anything?" Preston asked quietly, not wanting to wake Sana. Janet turned to him with a smile. "No, thank you. I'm just enjoying the view. It's quite different from my window in Queens." Preston pulled up a chair beside her. "Better or worse?" "Different," Janet repeated. "Neither better nor worse. Just different." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Janet spoke again. "I want to thank you, Preston, not just for letting me stay here, but for how you've been with Sana, for how you love her." Preston was touched by her words. "Loving Sana is the easiest thing I've ever done, and the best decision I've ever made." Janet studied him thoughtfully. "It hasn't always been easy, though, has it? I know about your family, the struggles you had at the beginning." "Sana told you about that?" Preston asked, surprised. "Some of it," Janet confirmed. "My daughter keeps her own counsel, but she tells me enough. I know your family didn't welcome her with open arms." Preston sighed. "No, they didn't. They were, well, they were exactly what you'd expect from people like them. Polite racism wrapped in social niceties. And yet things have changed," Janet observed. "Your mother calls here almost daily to check on me. Your father sent those ridiculous gourmet gift baskets." Preston smiled. "They've come a long way. Sana, she changed them. The way she carries herself, her grace under pressure, her unwillingness to be treated as less than, it forced them to see past their prejudices." "She gets that from me," Janet said with a hint of pride. "I taught her to walk into any room like she belonged there, no matter who else was in it." "You taught her well," Preston said sincerely. Janet reached out and took his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "When Sana first told me about you, a wealthy white man from a family like yours, I was worried. I've seen too many people like you use people like us, take what you want, and then return to your privileged lives." Preston started to protest, but Janet held up her hand. "Let me finish. I was worried, but I trusted my daughter's judgment, and now having seen you together, having lived in your home, I understand what she saw in you. You're a good man, Preston Langford, not despite your privilege, but because you've learned to use it for good." Preston felt humbled by her words. "I'm still learning every day." "That's all any of us can do," Janet said with a nod. "Now, I think I'd like to go to bed. Would you mind helping me?" Preston helped Janet to her room, assisting her with the transfer from wheelchair to bed that she was still mastering. As he was about to leave, she called him back. "Preston, she loves you more than she's ever loved anyone. Don't forget that." "I won't," he promised. "Good night, Janet." He returned to the living room, where Sana was still sleeping on the couch. Instead of waking her, he covered her with a blanket and sat in the nearby armchair, watching her sleep. The small velvet box was still in his pocket, where it had been for weeks now. He had been waiting for the perfect moment, but maybe, he thought, there was no such thing. Maybe life was about creating perfect moments out of imperfect circumstances. The following weekend, Catherine and William came to visit Janet, bringing flowers and more of those ridiculous gourmet gift baskets Janet had mentioned. It was a testament to how much things had changed that the visit felt natural, comfortable. Janet and Catherine found common ground in their experiences as mothers, while William and Preston discussed business. After they left, Janet remarked to Sana, "Your future mother-in-law is not what I expected." Sana laughed. "She's improved considerably since we first met, but what do you mean, future mother-in-law?" "Preston and I aren't engaged." Janet raised an eyebrow. "Not yet, but he's been carrying around a ring box for weeks. I've seen him patting his pocket absently, checking that it's still there." Sana's eyes widened. "Mum, are you serious?" "Deadly serious," Janet confirmed with a smile. "And for what it's worth, you have my blessing. He's a good man, Sana, the kind who stays when things get hard." Sana hugged her mother, careful of her healing hip. "That means everything to me, Mom. Thank you." That night, after Janet had gone to bed, Sana and Preston sat on their small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and enjoying the cool evening air. "I've been thinking," Sana said, looking out at the city lights, "about us, about the future." Preston's heart skipped a beat. "What about it?" "I want one with you," she said simply, turning to meet his gaze. "A future, a life, everything." Preston set down his wineglass and took her hands in his. "I want that too, more than anything." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box that had been his constant companion for weeks. "I've been carrying this around, waiting for the perfect moment, but I'm realizing that with you, every moment has the potential to be perfect." He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in a simple platinum band. "Sana Reed, will you marry me?" Sana's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes, absolutely yes." Preston slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. "I hope you don't mind," Sana said when they finally pulled apart. "But my mom already knows. She spotted you checking your pocket all the time." Preston laughed. "Nothing gets past Janet, I should have known." "She gave us her blessing," Sana added, her voice soft with emotion. "That means a lot to me." "To me too," Preston assured her. "Your mum's approval is far more important to me than my parents." "Speaking of your parents," Sana said, "how do you think they'll react?" "They'll be happy for us," Preston said confidently. "They've come to love you, Sana. Maybe not as much as I do, but enough." They stayed on the balcony for hours talking about their future, making plans. They decided on a small wedding, intimate and personal, rather than the grand society affair his family might have expected in the past. They talked about children, agreeing that they wanted to start a family in a few years. They dreamed about travel, career goals, the life they would build together. In the morning they shared the news with Janet, who embraced them both with tears in her eyes. "I couldn't be happier," she said. "My daughter has found a man worthy of her." They called Preston's parents next, putting them on speakerphone in the living room. "Mom, Dad, we have some news," Preston began, squeezing Sana's hand. "Sana and I are engaged." There was a moment of silence, then Catherine's voice thick with emotion. "That's wonderful news. Congratulations to you both. We're very happy for you," William added, his tone warm and sincere. "When's the wedding?" "We're thinking sometime next spring," Sana said. "Something small and intimate." "Whatever you want," Catherine said quickly, surprising them both. "It's your day. Just tell us how we can help." After the call ended, Sana looked at Preston in amazement. "Who was that woman and what has she done with your mother?" "The Catherine Langford I first met would have already booked the plaza and invited 500 of her closest friends." Preston laughed. "People change, Sana. You changed them. You changed me. You walked into our lives and showed us a different way to be." Over the next few months, as Janet recovered and eventually returned to her own apartment in Queens, though she visited often, Preston and Sana planned their wedding. True to their word, Preston's parents were supportive without being overbearing, offering help but respecting their choices. They decided to hold the ceremony at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, a place Sana had loved since childhood. The guest list was kept to 100 people, close friends and family from both sides. Sana designed her own wedding dress, a stunning creation that combined traditional elements with modern flair. As the date approached, Preston found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. From that first meeting at the charity auction to the disastrous Langford Legacy Ball, from their painful separation to the healing and growth that followed, every step had been necessary. Every challenge had made them stronger. The day before the wedding, the Langford family hosted a rehearsal dinner at a beautiful restaurant in Brooklyn, not far from where Sana had grown up. It was Catherine's idea to hold it there rather than in Manhattan, a small but significant acknowledgement of Sana's roots. During the dinner, William stood to offer a toast. "To Preston and Sana," he began, raising his glass. "Tomorrow, you'll begin your journey as husband and wife. But the truth is, your journey together began the moment you met. And what a journey it's been." He looked around the room, at the mix of faces, the Langford family and friends, Sana's mother and her friends, colleagues from both their worlds. "I think I speak for everyone here when I say that watching your love grow and overcome obstacles has been inspiring. You've taught us all something about what matters in life." William turned to Sana. "When Preston first told us about you, I'm ashamed to admit that I saw only differences, different backgrounds, different worlds. What I failed to see was the most important thing, how perfectly you complement each other, how much stronger you are together than apart." He raised his glass higher. "So here's to Preston and Sana. May your marriage be blessed with love, respect, and the courage to always choose each other, no matter what the world throws your way. Everyone raised their glasses, voices joining in a chorus of "To Preston and Sana." After dinner, as they were saying their goodbyes, they had decided to spend the night before the wedding apart. In a nod to tradition, Catherine pulled Sana aside. "I wanted to give you something," she said, pressing a small box into Sana's hand. "It's been in the Langford family for generations." Sana opened the box to find a delicate diamond bracelet, vintage and exquisitely crafted. "It's beautiful," she breathed, touching it gently. "It's traditionally worn by Langford brides on their wedding day," Catherine explained. "I wore it when I married William, and his mother wore it before me. Now it's yours." Sana looked up, surprised by the gesture. "Are you sure? I know how much family traditions mean to you." "You're family now," Catherine said simply, "or you will be tomorrow, and there's no one I'd rather see wearing it." Sana was touched beyond words. She hugged Catherine, feeling the older woman's arms wrap around her in a genuine embrace. It was a moment she had never imagined possible when she first met the Langfords. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the gardens in full bloom. Sana got ready with her mother and closest friends, while Preston prepared with his father and best man at their loft. As Preston stood at the altar, waiting for Sana to appear, he felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where he was meant to be, who he was meant to be with. When the music began, and Sana appeared at the end of the aisle, his breath caught in his throat. She was stunning in her self-designed gown, a modern take on a classic silhouette that highlighted her curves and complemented her rich skin tone. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo adorned with small flowers, and around her wrist gleamed the Langford family bracelet. But it was her smile, radiant and full of love, that truly took his breath away. Janet walked her down the aisle, pride evident in every step. When they reached Preston, Janet placed Sana's hand in his, a symbolic gesture of trust and blessing. The ceremony was simple but meaningful, with readings chosen by both of them and vows they had written themselves. Preston's voice was steady as he promised to love, honor and cherish Sana for all the days of his life. Sana's eyes shone with tears as she made the same promises to him. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Preston kissed Sana with all the love in his heart, sealing their commitment to each other. The gathered guests erupted in applause and cheers. The reception that followed was a joyous celebration, a beautiful blend of their two worlds. Preston's society friends danced alongside Sana's childhood friends from Queens. Catherine and Janet sat together, deep in conversation, their initial wariness replaced by genuine respect and growing friendship. William found himself engaged in an animated discussion with Sana's former modeling colleagues about the business side of the fashion industry. As Preston and Sana took to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, he held her close, savoring the moment. "Happy?" he asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, looking up at him with love shining in her eyes. "You know, when we first met, I never imagined we'd end up here." "No?" Preston smiled. "I think part of me knew from that first night. You walked into that room and everything changed. You stole the room and you stole my heart." "Good thing you never asked for it back," Sana teased. "Never will," Preston promised, spinning her gently across the floor. "It's yours forever." As they danced, surrounded by the people they loved, Preston reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It hadn't been easy. They had faced prejudice, family opposition, their own fears and doubts, but they had overcome it all, growing stronger and closer with each challenge. And now they were here, beginning their life together as husband and wife. Not perfect, they would still face obstacles, still have disagreements, still need to navigate the complexities of their different backgrounds, but they would do it together, with love and respect as their foundation. The final test had come at the Langford Legacy Ball, when Preston had failed to stand by Sana in the face of his family's prejudice. It had been a painful lesson, but a necessary one. He had learned that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a daily decision to put someone else's needs and happiness alongside your own. Now, as he held his wife in his arms, Preston made that choice again, as he would every day for the rest of their lives, to love her, to support her, to stand beside her no matter what. And Sana, looking up at the man she had chosen, the man who had chosen her, made the same commitment. To love him not despite his background, but as a whole person, to challenge him when needed, and support him always. To build a life together that honored both their pasts while creating something new and beautiful. As the evening drew to a close, Preston and Sana slipped away from the reception, ready to begin their honeymoon and their new life together. They left behind two families that had once seemed worlds apart, but now were connected by love. The love between Preston and Sana, yes, but also the love that grows from understanding, from opening hearts and minds, from choosing to see people as they truly are, rather than through the lens of prejudice or preconception. In the car taking them to the airport, Sana rested her head on Preston's shoulder, her new ring catching the light. "We did it," she said softly. "Against all odds." "We did," Preston agreed, kissing the top of her head. "And it's just the beginning." Outside the window, the city lights glowed against the night sky, a tapestry of possibilities stretched out before them. Two people from different worlds, now creating a world of their own, together.